Chapter 21. Identity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated. Editor. Noodletown translated. You look surprised. Hua Xiqian smiled. Dressed in a white shirt and a pair of black pants, he looked graceful and sophisticated. However, for some reason, Hua Mian inexplicably disliked this person. It was a feeling even stronger than what she felt towards Hua Yanyan and Hua Si. As for how they were related, it was just a hot mess. When Hua Mian's mother, Yang Meirong, was wrong, she was a barely famous C-list actress who specialized in historical period dramas. Although she wasn't necessarily drop-dead gorgeous, she was pretty enough and, riding on the arrogance of youth, made some bad choices. At one point, she was one of the mistresses of Hua Zhenghai, the heir of the illustrious Hua family. She thought that, once she bears him a child, she could replace his wife. What she hadn't counted on was that both she and her daughter would be kicked to the curb. The Hua family never acknowledged her illegitimate daughter, Hua Mian, either. Hua Xiqian was the current heir of the Hua family. As an adopted child of Hua Zhenghai's wife, Mrs. Hua, who was also known as the Tigress, he had her full support. Therefore, even though he wasn't Hua Zhenghai's biological child, he still enjoyed a high status within the family. On the other hand, his siblings, Hua Yanyan and Hua Siyu, were the children of Hua Zhenghai's favorite mistress, Shen Jiani, and were doted upon by their father. Back in the day, Shen Jiani had enjoyed momentary fame as a celebrity. She managed to rise above all the other mistresses by taking advantage of various means and her intellect. Right now, the Hua family only publicly acknowledged these three successors. As for Hua Mian, no one knew about her aside from members of the Hua family themselves. Hua Xiqian had checked on Hua Mian a few times on his own. He tried to give her money, but she never accepted it. As far as she was concerned, aside from her last name, she had no further connection to the Hua family. She never thought of that man as her father either. She would rather give more of her love to her stepdad, Uncle Jing. Why would I be surprised? It's quite normal for someone like young Master Hua to be at a place like this. Hua Mian gave him a humorless smile. Rather, shouldn't it surprise you more to see us common folk here? Hua Mian, you seem to have something against me. Why is that? From what I remember, I've been fairly nice to you. Besides, glass in hand, Hua Xiqian moved closer to Hua Mian and continued, based on our positions within the family, you should really be calling me Big Brother. Zhu Lingling sat next to Hua Mian, listening quietly. It wasn't really her place to say anything. Young Master Hua must be joking. You are the heir of the great Hua family and I'm just some commoner. By what logic should we be addressing each other as siblings? As for me having something against you, well, you are right. Did you know? There are people in this world that you really just hate from the moment you lay eyes on them. Well, it just so happens that that's how I feel about you. When Hua Mian finished, she turned away from Hua Xiqian, not paying him any more attention. She touched her glass to Zhu Lingling's. Unwilling to give up, he went on trying to make small talk with Hua Mian. Dad hasn't been well lately. If you have time, you should go see him. Let me know when he leaves this world for good. On the account that he donated some swimmers to my creation 20.4 years ago, I'd be willing to light some incense sticks by his grave. Hua Mian's comment left Hua Xiqian speechless. His face darkened and, unwilling to invite more abuse onto himself, he turned around and left. After Hua Xiqian walked away, Zhu Lingling cried out with her palm against her mouth, my gosh. Girl, that was amazing. There's the Hua Mian I know. You showed no mercy, not even to your brother. What brother? I never acknowledged him. Feeling a bit glum, Hua Mian took another sip of her drink. Chapter 22. Wager you are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated. Editor. Noodletown translated. Damn, it feels good watching you squabble with people. You've still got that razor-sharp tongue of yours, just as sharp as it was back in the day. Zhu Lingling laughed. I think this stubbornness of yours must have been why Qin Chu fell in love with you in the first place. At this, Zhu Lingling seemed to realize that she had said the wrong thing. She coughed, taking the conversation in another direction. What I mean is, even young Master Hu got a verbal lashing from you. You're amazing. Teach me your ways, great master. I'm done taking apprentices, Hu Mian joked while giving off a big smile. Look at you, acting all cheeky. Humph. Like you've actually taken apprentices before, Zhu Lingling teased back. Time spent messing about with girlfriends always passed quickly. The two would never cause trouble at night. Time establishments. By the time they finished their drinks, it was already late into the night. They each took a separate cab home. Arriving back at her rented apartment, Hu Mian changed into a nightgown and messaged Zhu Lingling. I'm home, Lingling, what about you? Zhu Lingling replied almost instantly, got home safe. I'm going to take a shower. Go to bed soon, good night. Just as Hu Mian was about to turn her phone off, she received a text message. The number ended with 8866, which she recognized to be Qin Chu's. Asleep yet? 2 simple words. However, without knowing why, Hu Mian felt her heart thundering in her chest. It had been 7 years since she last felt like this. It was strange, really. After a moment of thought, she promptly deleted the message, turned off the phone, and went to bed. On the other end of the line, at the Hillside Manor. Not seeing a reply after a while, Qin Chu realized that he wasn't going to receive anything tonight. Knowing Hu Mian's personality, there was no way she would text him back. Getting up, he walked down the stairs. Stopping before the wine rack, he picked out a bottle of red wine. Just then, heavy footsteps sounded from behind him. Without needing to ask, he had a rough idea of who it was. Chu, come here for a second. I have something to ask you. Qin Yuman hadn't been sleeping well lately. Waking up in the middle of the night, he heard movement coming from downstairs, so he went down to investigate. As he had guessed, his son wasn't asleep yet either. Qin Chu unhurriedly poured himself a glass of wine, then walked to the living room and sat down on the couch. With his head lowered, he gently swirled his glass. The navy-blue night robe he wore showed off his sculpted face perfectly. His eyes lowered, and his long fingers were tapping intermittently on the side of the wine glass. It was a sight that could intoxicate any woman. Seeing his son in this light, Qin Yuman felt a strange absence of familiarity. I heard about the meeting today. You dismissed the Greenfield Manor plan. I did. His answer was extremely straightforward. Why? Qin Yuman demanded, slightly enraged. I don't like it. Nonsense. Business isn't done based on likes and dislikes. If that were the case, GK would have gone bankrupt long ago. Chu, I handed GK over to you because I believe in you, but you can't be so reckless. I have my reasons for what I did. If you don't trust me, then do it yourself. You know that I've never had any interest in a boring job like this in the first place. You. Qin Yuman was left speechless with rage. A moment later, Qin Chu suddenly raised his head, his eyes catching the light for a moment. Dad, do you still remember our wager from 7 years ago? He asked. At this, Qin Yuman paused for a moment but remained silent. 7 years ago, he had made a bet with his son, a wager on a very important matter. What are you trying to say? Frowned, Qin Yuman asked Qin Chu. Not much. I just wanted to remind you that I've done everything you requested, so isn't it time for you to return the favor? Hearing this, Qin Yuman's expression darkened. However, in the end, he only said this, I don't care how, but I want this quarter's performance improved by 15%. Otherwise, the Greenfield project will commence, and you will be demoted, he huffed. Don't think that, just because you're my son, I can't do anything to you. With that, Qin Yuman turned brusquely and left. It was easy to see that he was angry. Although he didn't say a word about the promise from 7 years ago, Qin Chu knew that his father understood what he meant. As for GK's performance, he thought, I can raise it by 15% with my eyes closed. I wonder why father brought up such an unchallenging task so solemnly. At 5 in the morning, Qin Chu was woken by a series of noises. At the door stood a middle-aged man in a black suit. Behind him were 8 members of the special police unit, with their guns in hand. Dr. Qin, sorry to disturb you. There's been an emergency and we really need you right now. His mother and father were shocked and confused. On the other hand, Qin Chu's expression was calm. Give me a minute to change. With that, he turned around and walked upstairs, hands tucked inside his pockets. After her son left, Mrs. Qin asked, pale and trembling, Yuman, our son. Did he get in trouble with someone important? Chapter 23. In need of money. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated editor. Noodletown translated. Huamian didn't get much sleep the night before. With big dark dot circles under her eyes, she got up and made some plain congee and 2 omelette rolls, which she took with her to the 4th People's Hospital. It was a good thing that she worked the night shift today and was therefore free during the day. Although she was tired, she couldn't let Jishin neglect his studies to take care of their mother. Mom, I brought you some food. Get it out of here. I'm not eating it. Yang Meirong was still throwing a tantrum. Even if your appetite isn't that good, you should still have some. It's really good. I made it myself, and I guarantee it's clean. I'll leave it right here. Leaving the breakfast on the table, Huamian tidied up a bit and walked out of the room. After Huamian left, Yang Meirong scanned the food on the table, and her stomach gave a traitorous growl. She glanced over at the door. Seeing that Huamian hadn't returned, she immediately picked up the food and dug right in. In truth, although Yang Meirong had a rotten temper, she wasn't a bad person. It wasn't that she really disliked her daughter, either. It was such that, she was still not over her late husband's untimely death. In the doctor's office. Doctor, has my mother gotten any better? Huamian asked anxiously. Her conditions have clearly improved. We'll be able to discharge her in a few more days. However, even then, she needs to continue taking her blood pressure medication. Alright, thank you. Hearing that her mother was alright, Huamian was finally able to let out a sigh of relief. But the hospitalization fee you paid isn't enough to cover the costs anymore, you need to pay up soon, the doctor reminded her. Huamian was a little surprised since she paid 7,000 yuan for the hospital fees just the other day. Yet, just a few days later, it was all gone. Oh dear. She already maxed out her credit card the other day. Adding that to the living expenses she had given to Jishin, she was pretty much broke. If this was before they broke up, she could have just borrowed some money from Ning Ziyuan. However, with the way things were now, there wasn't much hope for that. Left with no choice, she called Zhu Lingling, who immediately transferred over 10,000 yuan from the banking app on her phone. Lingling, thank you. A little embarrassed, she messaged her friend. Don't say that. If you need more, just tell me. Your mother's health is what's important. Don't worry about the money. Zhu Lingling's reply warmed Huamian to her core. She felt that this friendship was truly one worth keeping. The truth was, when her stepfather got into that accident, the Qin family had offered to pay a hefty sum in compensation, but Huamian's family turned it down. Instead, they insisted that the driver at fault be given the death penalty in retribution. In the end, however, the driver was only charged with drunk driving and sentenced to 5 years in jail. They, on the other hand, didn't receive a single dime in the settlement. Now, 7 years later, the responsible party had long been released from prison. However, her Uncle Jing now slumbered beneath North Hill Public Cemetery, never to open his eyes again. That was why no matter how her mother treated her or hated her, she genuinely accepted it all. During these 7 years, she hadn't been able to forgive herself either. "Mom, I'm working the night shift today, and I will be leaving in a minute. Please rest well. I'll arrange for your lunch and dinner to be delivered. Jixin is off school tomorrow, so he'll come to visit you. Get lost." Yang Meirong still treated her with the same disdainful attitude. From there, Huamian took the bus to the first hospital. She checked her watch when she arrived. There were still 40 minutes until the start of her shift. Changing into her nurse's uniform, she made her way to the ophthalmology building. She still wanted to give Ning Ziyuan one more try. After all, they had been together for 3 years. Even if there was no love between them, there was still a faint attachment. When Huamian arrived, the door was only half closed. Just as she was about to knock, she heard a flirting voice inside. "Dr. Ning, you're the worst. You've made my hair all messy." Chapter 24. Provocation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown Translated Editor. Noodletown translated, "It's fine. I'll fix your hair for you later. Come here and give me a kiss first." Huamian could tell that the voices belonged to He-Man and Ning Ziyuan. No wonder he had moved out in such a hurry. So that was how things were. The corner of her lips twitched. With a chuckle, she lowered the hand she'd raised to knock and turned around to leave. She was just in time to see another doctor from the ophthalmology department approaching the door. "Ha, Huamian, why don't you go inside if you're already here?" "It's all right. I have other things to do." By this time, the two inside had clearly heard the conversation. He-Man immediately leaped up from Ning Ziyuan's lap, smoothing out her collar and hair. That was when the ophthalmologist, Dr. Zhu, just walked in. Glancing at He-Man, he told Ning Ziyuan, "I just saw your fiancé." "Oh really?" Ning Ziyuan's response was rather indifferent. Are you guys all right? Weren't you two getting married?" "Not anymore." "You can't be serious." Dr. Zhu was surprised. "Humph, I see no reason to keep a woman like that around." With that, Ning Ziyuan stood up and, buttoning up his white lab coat, left the room. He-Man trailed cautiously behind him. Seeing this, Dr. Zhu shook his head, dejected. Young people these days really treated relationships too lightly. What had the world come to? "Dr. Ning, did you really break up with Huamian? What do you think?" "That's fantastic. Now, people won't say that I'm the other woman anymore. When are you going to tell everyone at the hospital that we are together?" He-Man whined, flirting. Ning Ziyuan glanced at her carelessly, "What's the rush? Isn't it more fun to sneak around?" "Oh, you're the worst. Really?" He-Man reached out and pinched Ning Ziyuan's hand lightly as she squealed. As one of the assistant nurses in the ophthalmology department, she had admired Ning Ziyuan for a long time, and for a good reason. Ning Ziyuan was both handsome and smart. In addition, his surgery performances had been good. So, although he was still an intern, he would soon become an attending physician. By then, his status within the department would be even higher. Before this, she'd always been looking for opportunities to approach him. However, back then, Ning Ziyuan only had eyes for Huamian. It made her nearly mad with envy, watching Ning Ziyuan go off to buy midnight snacks for Huamian. So long as it was something Huamian liked to eat, Ning Ziyuan would go and buy it even if he had to sacrifice sleep after finishing a night shift. He was the perfect boyfriend. Now that she had finally gotten a chance, she wouldn't let it slip away for the world. Inside the nurse's dressing room, Huamian sat resting, inclined and with a cup of water in her hand. Her mind was elsewhere. When He-Man walked in and saw Huamian sitting there alone, she felt a surge of satisfaction well up in her chest. Sister Huamian. What is it? Huamian turned her head towards her, expressionless. Huamian, Dr. Ning and I know everything. What, did you want me to congratulate you? Huamian sneered. He-Man stiffened. She felt like the Huamian before her now was somehow different from the gentle girl she usually was. That's not what I meant. I just wanted to say that I did nothing wrong. Even if it weren't for me, Dr. Ning wouldn't have stayed with you. He told me himself, it really bothers him that his future wife wasn't a virgin. Really? From the way you're talking, you've slept with him already, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come preaching to me. Turning away from He-Man, Huamian raised her cup to her lips and took a sip. Unwilling to back down, He-Man goaded at her, of course, I'm clean. Dr. Ning said that he was going to marry me. So what? Huamian stood up, demanding in an icy tone. So nothing. What I wanted to say is this. I won this battle, didn't I? Please stop bothering Dr. Ning. After all, you're not together anymore. A rational woman shouldn't cling to a man shamelessly. He-Man's words were a warning. After hearing this, Huamian gave her the sweetest of smiles. It made the hairs on the back of He-Man's neck stand up. Why are you smiling? My mother once told me that I should give away the toys I didn't like to children that are less fortunate than me because they are pitiful. You. He-Man was unable to form a complete sentence. She never thought that this seemingly gentle nurse had such a dark side. Excuse me, let me through. I have work to do. Gesturing with her hand, Huamian calmly walked out of the dressing room. Truth be told, she really wasn't too upset about Ning Ziyuan breaking up with her. The only thing was, Ning Ziyuan had been good to her for the past few years and that was why she wanted to try to patch things up. However, now that it had come to this, she naturally wouldn't try anymore. Shamelessly clinging on. That really wasn't her style. Outside a delivery room in the obstetrics and gynecology department. Huamian. As Huamian was about to go inside to help with the delivery, she was stopped by the head nurse. Head nurse, you called me. Huamian turned around. The director wants you in his office, the head nurse said in a clear, crisp tone. The director wants me. Huamian was caught by surprise. More than that, she was confused. The director was rumored to be a very busy man who wouldn't show up to the hospital more than a couple times a year, and even the head nurse hadn't had a chance to meet him this year. Why would he suddenly ask for her? What was going on? Chapter 25. Orders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown Translated Editor. Noodletown Translated. It actually took less than 10 minutes to walk from the obstetrics and gynecology department to the director's office, but Huamian managed to stretch it to 15 by walking slowly. Director Wu Zhongxing was a man of over 50, with a square face, sharp eyes, and an old-fashioned way of doing things. Of course, as a nurse intern who had been working at the first hospital for less than a year, Huamian had yet to have the honor of meeting the director in person. She had only seen him in photographs on the hospital's official webpage. From what she had heard, the director was an outstanding orthopedics professor in his youth. In addition, he was a visiting professor in Europe many times in the past. Without realizing it, she arrived outside the director's office. Standing at the door was a fancy man in a crisp suit and gold-rimmed glasses. Are you Huamian? The man spoke first. Yes. The director's waiting for you inside. Head on in. Okay. Huamian nodded. Then, being slightly anxious, she knocked on the door. Come in. A deep, solemn voice rang out from inside. Huamian walked inside to see the director. As expected, he looked pretty much the same as in his photos, and the white physician's lab coat was extremely bright. Although the director was not yet 60 years old, his hair was already streaked with white, and there were clear wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. Are you Huamian? The director began the conversation. I am. Come and sit down. The director's attitude was surprisingly amicable. This, however, made Huamian even more uneasy. It's all right, I'll just stand. Huamian was still a little withdrawn. Don't be afraid. Let's sit down and talk. The director gestured, motioning for Huamian to have a seat. Huamian thought that if she were to refuse again, she might appear unreasonable. So, she walked over and sat down gently on the black sofa. Here's the thing. I called you here today because I have a very important task for you. Huamian nodded. Okay, director. Please tell me. As long as it's within the range of my capabilities, I promise I will do my best. Yesterday, an official from the capital city of Jing came to inspect Sea City. However, he suddenly suffered acute cerebral hemorrhaging and was brought into our hospital's most exclusive VIP suite last night. Our medical facilities and equipment aren't really top of the line to begin with. However, the official's condition is dire and he's not stable enough to be transferred to another hospital. With his critical condition, the slightest move can result in severe intracranial hemorrhaging. Therefore, the other executives and I held an emergency meeting and decided to perform the craniotomy here, at this hospital. The surgery will take place 3 hours from now, and the top neurosurgeons will personally perform the procedure. After the director had finished, Huamian nodded her head. She understood the situation now, it was dire indeed. Since the official came from Jing City, he or she must hold a highly important position within the government. No wonder the director was taking this matter so seriously. Director, is there anything I can do to help? I would like you to be the scrub nurse for this surgery. At this, Huamian immediately objected. Director, how can you ask that of me? I'm a delivery nurse who works in the OB/GYN department, and I don't know anything about neurosurgery. You should send someone like the head nurse to assist, not an intern like me. I believe that you must have seen my resume. I'm not a graduate of a famous institution. Rather, I graduated from the advanced nursing program at one of our city's ordinary medical academies. I know that, the director replied earnestly. If you already know, then why are you giving this task to me? That's not a sensible decision, Huamian said calmly. Chapter 26. Risk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated editor. Noodletown translated. Huamian, you don't need to say any more. It's been decided, so just do as you're told. This is a task assigned to you by the hospital. If the official recovers well after the surgery, I will reward everyone involved with the procedure with bonuses and honors. Against his expectations, Huamian shook her head and stood up. Director, I don't need awards and honors, she said, I just don't think I can accomplish this task. I apologize, but I cannot accept this. You are really a stubborn child, aren't you? The director's voice carried a hint of dejection. Director, I'm only telling the truth as I see it. This surgery is far too important. If this were delivering a child or something of that nature, I might have been able to help. But with a neurosurgical procedure, I may just be a hindrance to the team. I suggest you find someone more suited for the task. With that, Huamian stood up and headed towards the door. She wasn't about to catch this hot potato. She was really questioning the director's sanity at this point. The first hospital had hundreds of outstanding nurses, so why did he have to pick her, an intern from the OB/GYN department, to serve as the scrub nurse for such an important operation? It was laughable, really. Just as Huamian made it to the door and was about to open it, the director's voice sounded again. Huamian. The truth is, I'm not the one who decided that you should be the scrub nurse for this surgery. The attending neurosurgeon handling this case personally asked for you. The attending neurosurgeon asked for me. Huamian turned around in disbelief. That's right. The attending neurosurgeon has an odd temper and was even more difficult to invite. It took a lot of effort for us to convince him to perform this surgery, but he had only one request. That you be the scrub nurse. Otherwise, he won't perform the surgery. You should know that there's a life at stake here. The bigwig official is still at our hospital. If anything were to happen to him, it wouldn't just affect you and me. The entire hospital will be crippled from the repercussions. But Huamian was dumbstruck. I don't know any attending surgeons. Did he get the name wrong? Are there any other nurses with the same name as me at our hospital? No. You're the only one called Huamian. I wouldn't get that wrong. But Huamian was still somewhat reluctant. Huamian, stop saying, but, we have no time to waste. The surgery will commence 3 hours from now, and you need to be in an hour to begin prepping. You'll also need to meet with the other team members. Director. Huamian, this is an order. You must accept it. Director Wu was getting impatient. His face fell, and his demeanor took on a forceful edge. Huamian fell silent. She wondered if she would seem overly inconsiderate if she were to resign right now. However, if the surgery were to fail and the official kicked the bucket, wouldn't she be just as doomed? Huamian felt like crying. She should have known that being summoned by the director himself all of a sudden couldn't have possibly been good news. After a moment of silence, Huamian finally nodded. That's great. Then you should go prepare now. Be at the neurosurgery department's VIP or on the top floor in an hour. Okay. Huamian nodded again. Walking out of the director's office, Huamian's mind was a mess of emotions. When she returned to the obstetrics and gynecology department, she saw the head nurse waiting there for her with several other nurses. It was quite the welcoming committee. Huamian, the director already called me and roughly explained the situation. Hurry, go change, and then perform a full body sterilization. When you're done, I'll ask someone to escort you up to the operation room on the top floor. Head nurse, it's all right. I can go by myself. Huamian was unaccustomed to special treatment. No, you can't. This is an extremely important task and you must do a good job. Miss Hua, you're so lucky. I heard that the attending neurosurgeon personally asked for you. I don't know what's going on as well, if the attending surgeon isn't a friend of yours, is he? How come nothing as good as this ever happens to the rest of us? Several of the younger nurses whined incessantly. I don't know any attendings, Huamian replied in the negative. Enough, stop talking, all of you. Hurry up and get ready, Huamian. I have to remind you that, while it is a good thing that the director trusts you with this task, if you mess this up, the consequence wouldn't be as simple as just getting fired. You know how important this patient is, right? The head nurse's words were sharp and to the point. Huamian gave a little nod and replied, I know. If it fails, my life might be over too. As she finished her sentence, the younger nurses all went pale. Now, do you still think Huamian is lucky? The head nurse asked with a darkened expression. Any of you still want to take her place? Chapter 27. The Doctor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated editor. Noodletown translated. After Huamian finished changing, she refused the offer from another nurse in her department to accompany her and walked up to the VIP area on the top floor alone. On her way there, the only thing she could think of was that, if the procedure were to fail, she might not even get the chance to see her family again. At that thought, she pulled out her cell phone and called her mother. It rang for a while, but no one answered. Clearly, her mother didn't want to talk to her. She sighed and then called her little brother, Jing Zhixin. Sis. Jing Zhixin's youthful voice sounded from the other end. Zhixin, are you in class? Not anymore. I didn't have many classes today, so I'm at the library, doing a bit of research. Is everything okay? Oh, it is. I'm a bit busy today, so I might not be able to go to Fourth People's Hospital. If you have the time, don't forget to go check on Mom. I know. I'll go when I'm done here, and I'll buy some dinner for Mom. Alright. Huamian's mind was weighed down by other things. Sis, I'll talk to you later. Jixin, if I become too busy, I might not be able to take care of you too. You have to take care of our mom for me. Got it, sis. With that, Jing Jixin hung up. Lifting up her phone again, Huamian flipped through her contact list until she reached Ning Ziyuan's name. She didn't really see a need to make that call. Instead, she dialed Zhu Lingling's number. However, the call didn't go through, so she was probably on a flight. Putting away her phone, Huamian took a deep breath and, clearing her mind, she opened the door of the lounge adjacent to the operating room. A man, who seemed to be in his 30s, spoke to her first. You're Huamian, right? I am. I'm the scrub nurse of the neurosurgery department, Song Heng. You can just call me Song. Hello, Huamian greeted him. These are the names and profiles of those involved with the surgery today. Have a look. Song Heng handed Huamian a file, and she slowly flipped it open. Assistant Surgeon. MD Wang Qi, male, 47, renowned neurosurgical specialist, graduated from Jing Medical University. Assistant Surgeon. MD Huang Xiaoning, female, 43, renowned neurosurgical specialist, graduated from the Faculty of Medical and Health Sciences at the University of Auckland. Anesthesiologist. MD Fang Su, 42, expert anesthesiologist, graduated from Osaka Medical University. Scrub nurse. NP Song Heng, 35, neurosurgery scrub nurse, graduated from the School of Medicine at the National University of Singapore. Scrub nurse. Huamian, 24, intern obstetric scrub nurse, graduated from the Advanced Nursing Program at Sea City Medical Academy. Compared to the profiles before her, Huamian felt like an ant before giants. If there were so many experts lying about, why did they have to send an OB/GYN intern nurse like her in here to risk her life? That's right, the director said that she was personally picked by the lead surgeon. Where was his or her profile? She raised her head. She asked, why isn't the profile of the lead surgeon here? Oh, it's not on file. The lead surgeon doesn't like attention, and he refused to reveal too much of his personal information. All I heard was that he's a very young man with a postdoctoral degree from Harvard Medical School. He has a postdoctoral degree from Harvard Medical School. Huamian was left completely in shock. Someone as impressive as him existed in a little third-tier city like theirs. How come she had never heard of this person before? Okay, have some confidence, we'll definitely succeed. Song Heng smiled. I really hope so, Huamian said and returned a smile. Just then, the door of the lounge was pushed open and 4 doctors in white lab coats entered the room. When Huamian saw the last person to walk in, she felt like her brain was about to short circuit. That's Qin Chu, right? Chapter 28. Betting on one's life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 28. Betting on one's life. Translator. Noodletown translated editor. Noodletown translated. Hello everyone, I'm the lead surgeon for this operation. Next, I'm going to hold a surgical meeting with all of you here. Please listen very carefully and understand your individual responsibilities. I don't want to see any mistakes during the surgery. In other words, this procedure is a wager, and all of our lives are on the line. We can only succeed because no failures will be tolerated. Understand? Understood. The others all treated him with great respect. Only Huamian stood dumbfounded, unable to respond in time. Qin Chu, on the other hand, hadn't even looked directly at Huamian since he entered the room. Instead, he picked up a thick stack of paperwork and began going over the patient's medical history. Time is of the essence, so I'll make it short. The patient suffers from secondary cerebral hemorrhaging, specifically caused by bleeding of the brain tissue surrounding the ventricular system into the cerebrum. There is a hemorrhage in the putamen entering the lateral ventricle between the front of the caudate nucleus and the capsula interna, internal bleeding in the thalamus entering the third ventricle, and from the pons entering the fourth ventricle. As such, we will utilize different treatment techniques accordingly. During the operation, in order to relieve the patient's intracranial pressure, I will first create a lateral ventricular puncture through the front to allow the cerebral-spinal fluid to exit. Then, I will create burr holes in the cranium where the hematoma is present and, combined with the use of synthetic enzymes, liquefy the hematoma and expel the fluid. During the procedure, a number of unexpected conditions may come up. Examples of these include a sudden increase in the patient's blood pressure or severe intracranial hemorrhaging caused by a burst blood vessel. Therefore, we must make every possible preparation ahead of time in order to ensure our success. After Qin Chu finished, he scanned the room. "Is that understood?" he asked in a cold tone. "Yes." The group's answer was concise. "Let's go." With that, Qin Chu led the way into the operating room next door. "Huamian, pay attention. Did you hear what Dr. Qin just said?" "I did." With Song's warning, Huamian tried her best to keep herself calm. After everyone entered the operating room, Qin Chu glanced behind him at the anesthesiologist. "Let's begin. Apply general anesthesia." "Okay." "Huamian, insert an urethral catheter for the patient. I will insert the patient's fore and apply an oxygen mask." Song said quietly. Huamian nodded. Picking up the catheter, she just made it to the side of the operating table when a voice stopped her. "Huamian," Qin Chu suddenly called her name. "Here," she reflexively answered. "Insert the patient's fore and apply the oxygen mask," he ordered. "Me." Huamian was about to say that Song was doing those things already. However, she heard Qin Chu proceed to instruct Song, "Go insert the catheter for the patient." "Yes, Dr. Qin." Not daring to disobey orders, Song immediately swapped tasks with Huamian and went to the lower half of the patient's body. As Huamian looked at the 60-something old man lying on the operating table, a thought suddenly occurred to her. Qin Chu intentionally swapped their tasks, didn't he? Had it been to prevent her from inserting this patient's urethral catheter? God, wasn't that going too far? Was it really necessary? Huamian didn't dare to linger on the matter anymore. She only proceeded as Qin Chu had ordered, no matter how many questions she might have had in her mind. After Qin Chu had returned to the country, rumors said he was now the president of GK. However, during his years abroad, why did he get a postdoctoral degree at Harvard Medical School? Instead of becoming a doctor after graduation, he went on to become the president of a business empire. That's bizarre. Could it be that it was because of what happened back in the days? Huamian, keep an eye on the patient's blood pressure and heart rate. I'm opening his cranium now, keep me updated on his status. Okay. Tension was high in the air throughout the entire course of the surgery. Because they all knew how important this procedure was, they didn't dare to let their attention slip. The surgery took a full 8 hours. By the end, Huamian was weak with exhaustion. She didn't remember anything, only that Qin Chu kept on using technical terms and ordering her, curved forceps, periosteal detacher, hemostat, 3-prong rake retractor, duraforceps, nerve stripper, nerve retractor. She felt like her head was about to explode. She was assigned to the OB/GYN department ever since she began working at this hospital 6 months ago. Most of the surgeries she had seen were C-sections. Compared to neurosurgery, C-section seemed as simple as a chicken laying eggs. So this was what a high-level surgery really looked like. Finally, the surgery was complete. As the surgical light snapped off, Huamian stole a glance at Qin Chu and saw that there was actually sweat beading on his forehead. The surgery was a success. Well done, Dr. Qin. The two assistant surgeons were pleased with the results. Qin Chu didn't reply, and only nodded his head. He stripped off his gloves and walked out of the operating room. Song and several other nurses immediately transferred the patient to the ICU for observation, and the other surgeons were finally able to rest. As Qin Chu left, Huamian followed right behind him. She walked very slowly. In reality, she was avoiding Qin Chu, not wanting any direct contact with him. Just then, Qin Chu's cell phone rang, and he stopped in his tracks to answer. Seizing the opportunity, Huamian immediately picked up her pace and shot ahead a dozen meters, stopping in front of a water dispenser. She grabbed a paper cup and filled it with water. After gulping down several cups of water, she poured a cup of hot water, planning on taking it with her. Just as she was about to turn and leave, she saw Qin Chu walking towards her. The two stood, face to face. As Qin Chu gazed at her, his expression underwent the faintest of changes. Chapter 29. Progress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown translated editor. Noodletown translated. Feeling a little awkward, Huamian stood up to leave. Mian, he called. Perhaps it was because she was too nervous that, as she turned around, her hand shivered and the cup of boiling hot water she had been holding hurtled to the ground. It was currently the beginning of summer and Huamian was wearing a very thin pair of shoes. If the boiling water landed on them, it would probably scald her feet. Ah! Not having time to react, she could only watch as the cup fell. Just then, a pair of broad hands reached out and caught the cup squarely between them. However, due to the downward momentum, a fair amount of hot water still spilled out. Large red splotches immediately flared up on the back of Qin Chu's left hand, extending down to the base of his thumb. Here's your cup. Qin Chu straightened up, his expression unchanging, as he handed the cup over to her. How's your hand? Huamian asked nervously. It's fine. What do you mean it's fine? It's all red. Quick, come here and run it under cold water. Huamian snatched the cup from Qin Chu's hand and tossed it into the trash without another glance. Then, tugging him by his sleeve, she pulled him up to the water dispenser. Holding his scalded left hand under the nozzle, she pressed down on the cold water button. Qin Chu didn't make a sound as he let Huamian do all of this. If he hadn't just misread the situation, when his hand was scalded, was that nervousness in Huamian's eyes. Thinking of this, the corner of Qin Chu's lips lifted slightly in triumph. Does it still hurt? Huamian asked, raising her head. Qin Chu shook his head no. Only then had Huamian realized that she was still holding his hand. In order to avoid making the situation even more awkward, she immediately let him go. You should go to the pharmacy later and pick up a tube of burn cream, Huamian reminded him. It's fine. His voice was low and husky, with a magnetic quality. Since you're fine, I'll be leaving now. In truth, Huamian was terrified of facing Qin Chu alone. It was because she was afraid that the strange feeling bubbling up in her chest would grow even more audaciously. She was even more afraid that Qin Chu would be able to see through to what she'd really been thinking. Mian, he spoke again, gently. She stopped in her tracks but didn't turn around. She stood there in silence, awaiting his next words. Thank you for your hard work today. You too, Dr. Qin. With that, Huamian sped up her pace and quickly left the room, not daring to stay a second longer. Qin Chu was left speechless by Huamian's words. Dr. Qin. He coughed inwardly. That was a low blow. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought that she was addressing an old man. However, he was indeed worthy of the doctor title. Thanks to this peculiar surgical procedure, he seemed to have gotten just a little closer to Huamian. Qin Chu was very pleased. Slipping his hands into his pockets, he left wearing his signature better than thou expression. On him, the white lab coat that the doctors wore looked surprisingly tasteful. The point was that good-looking people looked good, no matter what they wore. Behind him, several young nurses were already fangirling. "Whoa, which department is that doctor from? He's so young and hot," one of the nurses lauded. "I thought that, too. His poise is amazing. Even the way he walks is hot as hell and so domineering." "But I love it," another young nurse said, not even bothering to disguise her adoration. "Oh no, I feel my heart thumping really hard. Quick, go ask around. Which department is this new doctor in? I have to act first." The young nurses chattered excitedly amongst themselves. However, they didn't know just how special this person really was. This was someone even the director of the hospital hadn't been able to invite. It was only after Huamian had left that she realized there was a question she was meaning to ask him. Why did Qin Chu get a medical degree from Harvard? His family had been conquering the business world for generations and, as he was currently a businessman, shouldn't he have studied business in America? Instead, she saw an outstanding neurosurgeon in the operating room just now. As her mind wandered, someone suddenly patted her on the shoulder. "Sister Huamian, the head nurse is looking for you," said Huang Yu, a young nurse, with a bright smile. "Okay, I'll be right over." Chapter 30. Reward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Translator. Noodletown Translated Editor. Noodletown translated inside the head nurse's office. When Huamian entered the room, she saw Su Yan, the head nurse, talking on the phone. At the sight of Huamian, the head nurse quickly finished her conversation and hung up the phone. She nodded at Huamian and said, "Take a seat." "Yes, ma'am." Su Yan, the head nurse, was famous in the OB/GYN department for being a stone-cold workaholic. She had made many interns cry. Weaker-hearted interns had either quit or transferred to another department. Huamian had interned under Su Yan for 6 months now. Although the head nurse was intimidating, she was very professional and knowledgeable. Huamian preferred these qualities about Su Yan, and as far as she was concerned, Su Yan was much better than those greedy company workers who only cared about money. "Huamian, the hospital director's assistant just called and asked me to pass along the message to you. The surgery for the government official was very successful, and he should wake up in 12 hours. "Oh really? That's fantastic." Huamian smiled. "The director wants to reward the staff involved in this surgery after the official wakes up. 3 from our hospital participated in it. The anesthesiologist, you, and another male nurse. The director would like to know what rewards you would like. The patient isn't conscious yet, isn't it a little too early to speak of rewards?" Huamian asked, slightly hesitant. "The director is sure that the official will wake up. Just tell me what you would like, and I will pass it along to the higher-ups, Su Yan said calmly. Huamian thought for a second and asked, "Ma'am, could I really make a request?" "Of course, as long as it's not too over the top. I was hoping to get a pay bonus." Huamian made sure she enunciated every word. "A pay bonus?" The head nurse looked surprised. "I thought you would ask for a permanent position." The process of obtaining a permanent position required at least 3 years. On top of that, interns must go through a rigorous process of testing and grading. It was a long and complicated process. A full-time position. "Oh, I haven't thought of that. After all, I've only been here for 6 months, so I don't expect to become a full-timer anytime soon. A bonus of 1,000 yuan might be more useful right now." She truly needed the money. Not only did she max out her credit card, she also owed Lingling 1,000 yuan. So even if the hospital could only give her 1,000 yuan, that would still help out the situation. At the very least, her younger brother would have enough money to live for the next month. Alright, I will pass on your message. But, the decision will ultimately be made by the director. Alright, ma'am, if there is nothing else, I'll get back to work, said Huamian as she got up to leave. Oh, Huamian. Yes, ma'am. Huamian turned around. I've heard that the lead surgeon for this operation is an incredible neurosurgeon, and all of his assisting surgeons are domestically renowned doctors. He very young, asked the head nurse, slightly embarrassed. The head nurse didn't mean to pry, she was just curious. She heard that the surgeon was from Harvard, but hadn't had the chance to meet him in person yet. She could only ask Huamian to quench her interest. After 3 seconds of silence, Huamian bit down on her lips and replied, yes, he's very young. For reasons unclear to her, Huamian felt proud speaking about Qin Chu. Despite the director's relentless efforts in inviting him to dinner, Qin Chu rejected the offer after the surgery. Eating dinner with a dry and uninteresting old man. It was too boring to even think about. Plus, it wasn't the director who convinced him to perform the operation. If it had only been him, Qin Chu probably wouldn't have accepted it in the first place. As he walked out of the hospital, Qin Chu took out his phone and called his driver to pick him up. Suddenly, he saw a black Jaguar slowing down and stopping in front of him. The window rolled down, and the young man sitting inside took off his sunglasses. Surprised, he exclaimed, Qin Chu.